whenever fall or Halloween time rolls around, I'm sure you see a ton of different Jack Skellington and Hocus Pocus references. The 2009 movie Coraline is a fun, creepy movie that should also be one of your fall/Halloween staples. Here's why. Coraline establishes its tone from the very opening sequence. The song that's used during the scene is, on its face, cheerful and bright, but kind of unsettling. There's just something kind of off about it. As we watch these sewing needle hands carefully handle and then slowly dismantle a doll, stitch by stitch. Then, when all that's left of the doll is a shell, we watch the hands put it back together. It's filled with some sort of sawdust or sand mixture, the button eyes are thoughtfully chosen, and each strand of hair is intently punched into the doll's head. Do you remember Toy Story 2? Like the scene where Woody's being professionally restored? That's what this scene reminds me of. Coraline is a movie that's all about details. It's a stop-motion movie, which means instead of actors and a stage, it's puppets made of clay or other material used. There are 24 frames per second in a movie, and for stop motion that means that hundreds of thousands of pictures are strung together to give the illusion of movement and life. Everything from the wardrobe of these little puppets to every single centimeter of the set is a deliberate choice. I'm going to be pointing out details here and there, but this is not going to be one of those every detail you missed in Coraline type videos. It'll be more fun for you to pick them out for yourself, should you choose to watch the movie. One detail I will say to be on the lookout for: bugs. It's in the details of this opening scene where something starts to feel off. Like with the buttons, for example. There are some buttons that have cobwebs over them, but there are others that have suggested something violent happened. The sewing machine that the hands use and the window itself that the doll floats through have cobwebs all over it. You know, something is going on here. From there, we're cast into the desaturated, gloomy world of Coraline Jones. Coraline Jones, with her blue hair and her bright yellow raincoat, is the brightest thing in this world. She and her writer parents are moving into a 150-year-old pink house, the Pink Palace Apartments. Coraline is creative, curious, and pretty dissatisfied about having to move to this place, Oregon, from Pontiac, Michigan. She briefly has an encounter with the landlord's grandson, Wybie. He tells her that his grandma doesn't usually rent to people with kids, and he's not allowed inside the Pink Palace Apartments. For no reason in particular, I'm sure. In unrelated events, Wybie drops off an old doll on her front porch that he found inside his grandma's stuff that looks exactly like Coraline. Very normal. Very normal. Coraline's parents are pretty inattentive to Coraline because they are knee-deep in book drafts that need to be finished by a deadline. So, Coraline explores her surroundings. And it's there, in the drawing room, that she finds this little door that's been sealed behind the wallpaper. She gets it to open, and it's just bricks. Just bricks on the other side. Nothing there. Until one night when Coraline follows a mouse into the drawing room, and the little door is open. And there's a colorful tunnel there, which, when she follows, she's spat back out into the drawing room, where she just left. Or is it? Everything here is brighter and better. Oh, and her mother has buttons for eyes, which, tips Coraline off that this lady might not be her mom. She introduces herself as Coraline's other mother, and she and Coraline's other father are very different from her normal parents. They're happier, they seem to have more energy, and they seem to actually like each other. But despite a magical, lavish dinner, there's something about Other Mother that kind of makes Coraline uneasy. The way she impatiently taps her fingers. Always listen to your gut for that uh-oh feeling, kids. It's important. The more you know. When Coraline wakes up in her dull, dilapidated normal room, she thinks that everything that happened was just a dream. Except the poison oak on her hand that her other mother had treated is gone. Anyway, Coraline meets her weird neighbors. Mr. Robinski is a blue-skinned man with a Russian accent who is training a mouse circus. Coraline's real mom makes a comment that she thinks that Mr. Robinski is just a drunk, which could be a play on the stereotype of Russians drinking vodka all the time. And yet, with this one little scene, let's pause it, with this one still right here, would you guess that this man was involved in the Chernobyl disaster? Let me explain. The medal that Mr. Robinski has on his shirt is based on a real-life medal awarded to people who helped in cleaning up a nuclear disaster. It's the Liquidator Medal, and on the front, in Russian, it reads, "Participant in the Cleanup Campaign." The central detail of this medal is a drop of blood with 3 lines, each representing the type of radiation: alpha, beta, and gamma. It also has the Russian initials for the Chernobyl nuclear power plant. While the director Henry Selick says that his skin is blue because he's outside all the time, this nod to one of the most famous nuclear disasters of our time could lead you to infer that maybe that had something to do with his blue-gray skin. And with that in mind, and his history, and you can start reading into his actions and his desires a bit more. You can start to learn more about his character. And all of this from one detail that's not even mentioned. Mr. Bobinski is a great example of where this movie and stop motion in general really shine. Because stop motion is such a meticulous craft and process, you can add a lot of creativity and depth with details that are seemingly insignificant. Stop motion is just cool, okay? Coraline also meets her downstairs neighbors, Mrs. Spink and Mrs. Forcible, an elderly couple that were trapeze artists in their heyday. All of her neighbors, whether it's through jumping mice messages or tea leaves, are telling Coraline similar things. She's in danger, don't go through the little door. Coraline runs into Wybie again, who tells her that his grandma doesn't let him go into the Pink Palace apartments because it's dangerous. His grandma had a twin sister who disappeared, but his grandma claims that she was stolen. Despite all of these warnings, Coraline, of course, goes back to her other parents. She spends her night in her other parents' whimsical garden and eating breakfast for dinner and watching the other Miss Robinski's functioning mouse circus with other Wybie, who can't talk. Other Mother thought that Coraline would like him better if she could fix him so he wouldn't talk. Coraline feels loved in this other world, where everything is bright and fun and nobody ever gets her name wrong. It makes going back to her dull, normal life kind of unbearable for Coraline. She wants more. So when her mom is out getting groceries, Coraline steals the key and goes back to the other world with her other parents. Regardless of what time Coraline heads over, it is always night in the other place. Tonight, she's going to go see the other Miss Spink and other Miss Forcible put on a theater performance for a theater full of Scottish Terriers. Coraline runs into other Wybie's cat just outside the theater. It's actually the same cat that real Wybie has, except over in this other world, he can talk. He gives a vague, foreboding warning about Other Mother, but all Coraline has seen is this amazing, tailored version of her, so Coraline doesn't pay it a whole lot of mind. She also misses how worried and sad Other Wybie looks when he drops her off to her other parents' home. But the Other Mother doesn't miss it. And Other Mother asks if Coraline would like to stay with them forever, that it's a possibility. The one caveat is that Coraline would have to agree to let Other Mother replace her eyes with buttons. Even without that horrific, gruesome caveat, something is up with Other Mother. Her facade is kind of slipping a bit. And it's very unsettling for Coraline. So she says she's going to sleep on it with full intention of just going back to her home and never coming back here. But Coraline wakes up and she's still in the other world. This hasn't happened before. Usually when she wakes up, it's in the normal world. Her other father is talking like he's some sort of slowed down record. And he says that Other Mother needs to be refreshed and that her strength is our strength. And he mentions that she did something to Other Wybie. So Coraline runs out of this other pink palace and then just keeps going. She's gonna just keep going and then maybe find a way out. The cat walks with Coraline and we start understanding what's really going on here.
Why does she want me?
She wants something to love, I think. Something that isn't her. Or maybe she just loves something to eat.
Eat?
The cat reveals that the cute little mice have actually been spies for Other Mother, as well as that doll that looks exactly like Coraline. Coraline tries to go through the little door, but she's intercepted by Other Mother. The thing about being a parent is that your kid will not always behave the way you want them to. And when they act like this, you need to respond in a mature, reasonable way. I don't have kids, by the way. And clearly, Other Mother has also never been apparent, because when Coraline is being stubborn and kind of bratty, it literally causes her form to distort and slip. She throws Coraline into this mirror world where Coraline meets the spirits of 3 of Other Mother's past victims. They call her the Beldum. The Beldum makes these dolls to spy on the children in their lives and find out what's making them unhappy. Then she crafts this wonderful, amazing, fantastical world to almost inflame the things that make them unhappy about their real world, to lure them in. Eventually, the contrast is so stark between the made-up world and the real world that the children agree to let her sew in the buttons, which hides their eyes. And it's there that the Beldum feeds on the souls of the children and leaves the remnants inside this mirror world, discards them. Both the children and the cat mention that, it could be that the Other Mother just wants to feed on them, but there does seem to be a genuine desire for Other Mother to love something that's not herself. And it's interesting that the Beldum chooses to keep these children inside this mirror, so that way she can look at the 2 things that she loves, her children and herself. Coraline realizes that her only chance is going to be to beat the Beldum at her own game, and she promises the other victims that she'll try to find their eyes so that way they can be free. She's pulled out of the mirror by Other Wybie. Even though they both know Other Wybie's going to be punished for this, Other Wybie helps Coraline escape through the not-so-magical-anymore tunnel. She rolls out into the real world, but her parents are nowhere to be found, and there are signs that maybe Coraline was in this other world for longer than she thought. And she sounds like a wackadoodle when she tries to explain all of this to the Wybie that talks. One night, the cat approaches her and she sees an image of where her parents are. It confirms her fears. The Other Mother has them. The cat batting at her face while she sleeps is really relatable. So, Coraline gears up for battle and then heads into the other world. The Other Mother greets her, locks the door behind her, and then literally eats the key. The cat had suggested challenging the Other Mother to a game because she loves them. So Coraline suggests a exploring/finding things game. She needs to find the eyes of the ghost children and also her parents. If she does, everyone goes free. If she doesn't, she'll stay here with Other Mother forever and let her love Coraline, and even sew buttons into her eyes. So Coraline explores her other parents' garden and the apartments of her neighbors. These places that were once magical and cool that have now just turned evil and downright awful and terrifying. In each location, she finds the eyes of the ghost children, which really just look like 1 marble per kid. Along the way, she finds the remains of Other Wybie, and her own other father gives up his own life to help her in her quest. By the time the cat helps her find the last eye, the other world is falling apart. The Other Mother, too, has physically degraded. Her human disguise is essentially gone. With the eyes of each of the ghost children, all that Coraline has left to do is tell the Other Mother where she thinks her parents are. The ghost children warn Coraline that even if she wins, the Other Mother probably won't let her go, so she needs to be clever here. So Coraline says that they are behind the little door, the one that leads to the portal. Other Mother coughs up the key and unlocks it. As she turns around to sew buttons into Coraline's eyes for guessing wrong, Coraline throws the cat at her face. The cat rips Other Mother's eyes off, which gives Coraline the opportunity to grab the snow globe that has her parents and book it through the tunnel. With Other Mother right behind her, she actually almost doesn't make it. She has to smash off Other Mother's sewing needle hand. So, her parents are home, but they don't seem to remember anything. All seems well, but that night, Coraline has a dream about the other children. The ghost children, now free, warn Coraline that she's still in danger. There's only 1 key to the door, and the Beldum will stop at nothing to get it. So Coraline heads down to an old well that's on the property, and she's being stalked by the hand all the way. As she's about to drop the key into the well, she's attacked by Other Mother's disembodied hand. But she's saved by Wybie, the real one this time. He helps her smash the hand and drop it and the key down the well, and they seal the well off. And then it's happily ever after. The end. In general, I would say I'm pretty skeptical and cautious when it comes to adaptations and remakes. There's been just a lot of garbage that's been put out there for the sake of making a quick buck off of our nostalgia. An adaptation has to walk a fine line between being a slave to the source material and being a completely different story with the source material name slapped on it. Coraline as an adaptation is done so well. But here are 3 examples of changes between the book and this movie. Number 1, the dolls. The opening scene of Coraline is pretty iconic, I would say, and as I said before, it sets the tone very well. But it also gives us deeper insight into the character of Other Mother. She creates this entire world full of living, thinking things just to entice Coraline in, although she ultimately views her the same way that she views everything else, as something to possess. She literally calls Coraline her little doll at one point. Number 2, Coraline as a character. Coraline inside the book has dark hair, is polite, and very quickly realizes that something is not right here. Coraline in the movie has blue hair, a way of her expressing herself and showing her desire for more than this monochrome, dull light that Seattle has to offer her. Coraline in the movie can seem very bratty and almost disrespectful at some points, but that makes her character journey when she learns to appreciate what she currently has, stand up for herself, and become the hero of her own story just that much more satisfying. And number 3, Wybie. Wybie in the book doesn't exist. It's actually primarily Coraline thinking and talking to herself. His inclusion here in the movie gives Coraline someone to talk to, someone to bounce her thoughts and feelings off of. I think adding him as a character was very smart. I also really like the backstory of his landlord grandmother having a history with the Beldum through her sister. It's the world of Coraline just that much bigger. And it shows the impact of the Beldum and her cycle on more than just the children who lost their lives, but the ones who were also left behind. When Other Wybie is ultimately killed for helping Coraline, it raises the stakes that much higher and raises Coraline's motivation for beating the Other Mother. With the exception of adding a brand new character, each of these changes are very small. It's all about details, man. My favorite detail is how in each of these lavish dinner scenes, Other Mother's plate is always clean. It's always clear and empty. We don't ever see the Other Mother eat anything aside from the bug candies. Her plate is always clean and clear and empty. But her meal is there. It's just not ready yet. It's Coraline. Details! Details. Henry Selick is an American filmmaker and director with a specialization in stop-motion animation. I didn't know his name for a very long time, even though I'd been familiar with his work since before I was born? I'm gonna be bold here and say you have also definitely seen his work before. Henry Selick is the guy that isn't known for, but directed James and the Giant Peach, The Nightmare Before Christmas, Monkey Bone, and Coraline, just to name a few. While Henry Selick didn't create stop-motion animation, he is certainly responsible for the most influential stop-motion animation movies in the last 50 years, easily. There are so many more details in Coraline that I could talk about. There's lots of YouTube videos and TikToks out there that do just that reveal every single detail. But I'm going to encourage you to watch this one yourself and let me know your favorite detail down in the comments below. Because Henry Selick deserves respect on his name. Thank you for watching, and thank you for subscribing. My name is Kyrie, this is Flights of Fantasy, and until next time, live well and be nice to cats. I think that's the real message here. Be nice to cats. Bye!